Hello, everyone. We're on our second week of the Rise series, Interrupting Guilt and Internalized Expectation. Listen, we're talking about emotional truth, boundary clarity, self trust, and internal permission, you guys. When guilt becomes your guide, releasing the story that you owe everyone, releasing the story that you owe everyone. Listen, you don't have to feel guilty for growing out of what no longer fits. All right. This session really exposes how guilt has been silently driving your choices, right? From people pleasing to over functioning. This lesson is really here to explore how your story of being the good person has been rooted in guilt, not really grounded in truth. Okay. Hello, everywhere. Welcome back. Welcome back. It's Monday. It is Monday, Mindset Reset Monday. And today's lesson is really here to help you identify the invisible guilt scripts that have been guiding your decisions. Again, from overgiving to people pleasing to emotional exhaustion masked as kindness. You'll learn in this lesson how to let go of the guilt and really return to your truth. All right. So, I got a question for you. Have you been calling guilt love? Has your yes been driven more by fear of disappointing others than actual alignment? Listen, today's life lesson will help you to identify where guilt has been silently driving your choices, break free from the stories that says you owe everyone, all right, and really replacing guilt based identity with grounded emotional truth. So are you ready for this conversation? If you're ready for this conversation, drop a one in the chat for me, because just because you're a good person doesn't mean you owe everyone access to you. All right. You're allowed to tell your truth even if it disappoints, if even if it's disappointing someone else. So let's name it. What is one thing that you've said yes to, not because you wanted to, but because you felt guilty saying no? Was it staying quiet to really avoid tension, which I see a lot of my clients doing, right? Is it taking on too much, right? To prove you're dependable, right? It's like this performance, like you can depend on me. So I'm going to keep saying yes, 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 even though I'm building resentment on the back end, right? Or is it agreeing with something just to keep the peace? All right. I want you to know or ask yourself, what would I have said, or what would I have done if guilt wasn't in the room? Listen, guilt is not your guide. Truth is. Truth is the highest form of frequency. All right. You Let's reclaim your emotions, right? Your emotional freedom together. Listen, I want to introduce this week because I think it's going to be a powerful week. All right. Last week we talked about releasing fear, the grip that fear had on you, right? And so today we're talking about interrupting the guilt and internalized expectations. Listen, this week we're breaking up with emotional obligations. That is the goal, that is the intention, because a lot of us are emotionally obligated to things that no longer serve us, all right? So we're confronting this inherited expectation, these invisible contracts, this quiet shame stories that has shaped your rhythm, all right? That has truly shaped your rhythm, because emotional freedom doesn't begin with what others want from you. It begins with what you know to be true. And it's time to really start unpacking what's true for us, or even going on a discovery. I mean, maybe you don't know what's true for you because you have been, pleasing everybody else, appealing to everybody else, right? But maybe this is your season to find out what's true for you. And in that, you may have some blunders, right? You may make some mistakes. You may not get it right all the time. So we have to take the perfectionist hat off, right? We're going to have to take that hat off and really go into curiosity, right? And become curious about life and what it has to offer. Okay. All right. Listen, what if the heaviness you're carrying isn't from responsibility? What if this weight that you're carrying, that we release when we go through our body scan, isn't from the responsibility? What if it's not from responsibility? It's from guilt. It's from a guilt you were never meant to hold. All right. Guilt is this like little sneaky thing, right? It does. It whispers to us in a way that really can motivate us. But guilt doesn't use, a lot of times, and we'll talk about this later, it doesn't use expansive emotions, right? Guilt can sneakily make you feel bad, right? It's using these lower emotions to really get you to move or stay stagnant. All right. So why am I doing this session? Because I know what it feels like to equate being good with being needed, with silence and exhausted and or being exhausted. All right. I want you to know that you can be kind and still have boundaries. Okay. You can be kind and still have boundaries. You can love deeply. You can love deeply and still say no. All right. So this session is about reclaiming your permission to really tell yourself the truth. All right. Because when you start to tell yourself the truth, the truth will set you free. All right. And then you'll start to experience some of the freedoms and some of the life that you ultimately want to experience. So, hello on this lunchtime. All right. This session, our disclaimer for today, this session will not guilt you into feeling guilty, right? This session is not meant to guilt you for feeling guilt, right? We are honoring your survival and we're calling you into some emotional clarity. All right, awareness without judgment, that is where healing ultimately starts. So again, good afternoon, it's Monday. It's time to take our deep breath. Right, we have woke up this morning, we've worked, we've done the things, we've connected with some people, so now it's time to get centered in ourselves. So let's take our deep breath. This is your time. No pressure, just your presence, right? Feeling your feet on the floor. But in the seat, if you're standing up, feeling your legs, just bringing some compassion to your body on today, right? It's Monday. We starting off the week, right? So let's start it off being present, feeling our spine, our torso, just bringing some love to all of our organs, right? Holding the space in our hearts. Like I said, a lot is going on. So we would definitely want to be in a good heart space. So let's fill our hearts up with some love and some compassion and some forgiveness as we go to talk about this conversation about guilt. How many of you have felt some guilt? How many of you are living from the residue of guilt? How many of you have been guilted into doing some things that you didn't want to do, but you felt guilty not doing it, so you just did it anyway? All right, this conversation is all about that. So I want to welcome you back to Life Lessons as we continue to scan our bodies up our necks, filling our face, all right, our lips, our ears, all right, bringing some softness around our ears so we can hear things a little bit more softer today. All right. Our eyes, seeing our eyes or feeling our eyes, our nose, right? Our brain, activating our brain. We're kind of coming on the second part of the day. It's afternoon. We've done what we need to do this morning. All right. And then giving some thanks to our biggest organ, our skin, right? Right. Just thanking it for covering us. Right. And then the space around us. And, if you're feeling too big right now, just kind of bring your energy in. If you're feeling kind of tight, just kind of stretch your energy out a little bit. So I want to welcome you back to Life Lessons with Dr. Sheila Little. If you're new here, I am Dr. Sheila Little, the creator of the Stop It Now method. The Stop It Now method was truly created to help you stop doing the things that are preventing you from getting the life you desire and deserve, right? Life Lessons is a part of Project Life. All right. Project Life is an initiative where we're turning theory into practice. All right. And one of the things that we're going to put into practice is, honoring our truth, right? Right. Just recognizing what activity is being done out of guilt and what activity is being done out of your truth. All right. Listen, drop one word in the chat for me. Tell me how you're doing today. I'm doing good. This was a long weekend. I went to see Beyonce last Monday. Got back on Tuesday, was in the airport all day on Tuesday. So my week started on Wednesday. And I promise you, it felt like it just from Wednesday to Sunday I felt like a long week. And a big part of it was because I was kind of off schedule. And so, yep, I'm back at it on this Monday, but I'm feeling grateful. I'm feeling fulfilled. I'm feeling good. Got some work to do today. Excited about that. How are you feeling today? And if you want to challenge this and drop a word in the chat that describes how guilt has been showing up in your life lately, subtly or loud. All right. How has guilt been showing up in your life lately? Let me see. Has guilt been showing up in my life? Yeah, I think that we can have family members that want the old given Sheila, and will possibly try to say some things to guilt me and to doing some things that I no longer entertain. And I'm okay with that. It's just, I don't do it, so Because I don't think guilting, the mechanism of guilting you is not one that you're going to run away from. It's one that you have to learn how to pivot, navigate through, and all of that. Okay. So, who this session is for? This session is for you if you feel guilty anytime you set a boundary. All right. If anytime you set a boundary, you start to feel guilty. I work with a lot of individuals that, they set boundaries, but they really can't hold boundaries, or they set boundaries and then they get mad at other people for not respecting their boundaries. And a big part of it is because they don't want to deal with the guilt of actually doing what's required to hold their own boundary, right? So if I said I wasn't going to, answer my phone after 6 o'clock, and then you called me at 7 o'clock and I already told you I'm not answering my phone, you know, I'm mad at you for calling me at 7. And really, you shouldn't be mad at the person for calling you at 7, right? You just got to not answer the phone, right? You just got to not answer the phone at 7. But a lot of us, will answer the phone with attitude like, didn't I tell you don't call me after 6 o'clock? And it's like, yeah, but it's not really their responsibility to hold your boundary. Okay. All right. So it's for you if you feel guilty anytime you set boundaries. It's for you if you carry silent pressure to overperform or overgive, right? A lot of us come from communities where we had to overperform or overgive, okay? So we want to bring some compassion into that. And this is for you if you equate disappointing others with doing something wrong, all right? If you equate disappointing others with doing something wrong, this is for you if you're done confusing emotional exhaustion for love. Listen, I know so many people who equate disappointing others with doing something wrong. And I have to encourage you that you're nobody's emotional bodyguard, right? At this grown age of adult, right? When we're dealing with other adults, you're not responsible for their emotions and they're not responsible for yours, all right? So we have to start to embrace this learned behavior, this learned understanding that disappointing others meant that you have done something wrong. All right. So what is today's powerful quote? Today's powerful quote is: guilt isn't always conviction, you guys. Sometimes it's programming. Remember, I said we're not broken. You're not a lot of things. You're just programmed, right? You're just programmed a certain way. So guilt isn't always conviction, you guys. And sometimes, it's like, oh, when you feel guilt, you'll say something like, oh, I'm just so convicted. I need to do this thing. And sometimes it's not conviction. It's just that you've been programmed to do that thing. And your brain and your nervous system is trying to get you to do the thing that you would traditionally do, especially if you establish a boundary and said, I ain't going to do that no more. And now you're going to do it. And then you saying it's conviction. It's really not conviction. It is just a program. Okay, so let's talk about it. Guilt often pretends to be our guide, right? It whispers, be nice. They'll be disappointed. Keep the peace. But that's not the truth, you guys. It's a story that's been passed down, that has been rehearsed and accepted as what? As a part of your identity. So today we stop letting guilt narrate who you are or who you need to be. Okay. Last week we talked about last week we disrupted fear as an author, and that was the whole goal, to really, get a grip or release the grip that fear has on you. Okay. But this week, now we're interrupting guilt as this invisible narrator behind the people pleasing, this narrator behind the overfunctioning, and this narrator around your need to chronically apologize. I'm sorry, I can't do that. I'm sorry this. I'm sorry. I feel so bad that I'm not able to. And you stretched thin, right? You know that you can't add another plate, but you're chronically apologizing because you can't do the things for other people. And they grown adult bodies can possibly do for themselves, but we don't know if they can do it for themselves because you've always done it for them. Okay. Because you've always stepped in and you've always played the savior. And now it's time to stop that, right? To stop that. All right. I had a client say to me one day, I used to think being a good Christian woman meant saying yes to everything. All right. Even when it crushed me, right? I used to think that being a good old Christian woman meant I had to say yes to everything, right? Even when it crushed me. But what she called kindness was actually a covert self-abandonment. It was her self-abandoning herself. All right. She wasn't loving others. She was avoiding disapproval, you guys. She just didn't want to feel the rejection or the disapproval. And we have to unbraid that, right? We have to unbraid that in her and see what the origin of that came from, right? So that she could break that pattern. All right. So here is your moment to pause and ask yourself, what's one decision or truth that you've been avoiding? All right. Not because it's wrong, but because it might disappoint someone else. Right. So what's one of those decisions that you've been avoiding, not because it's wrong, but because it would, you know, disappoint someone? I have a client that I work with, and this is huge for her, just the disappointment. Like, she absolutely wants to go left, right? When I say left, she wants to do something totally different. She's went right so many times in her life, in her career path, and all of that. And she feels called to do this creative thing in bakery or in baking. And but she's just so fearful of disappointing the people around her, right? Because a part of her income is definitely responsible for a lot of other adults, right? A lot of other adults outside of her dependent, which is her child. Okay. And she really wants to take this baking to another level, but this feeling, this idea that she's going to disappoint her family and and things like that, it really bothers her a lot. And so we have to unpack that. Every week we're unbraiding, again, the origin of where that came from, the story, so we can stop it, right, and really break the pattern. And so she's been able to have some conversations and really release some things, and then in our sessions have the support and the space that she really needs to unpack those emotions, to breathe through it, to feel all of the grief that comes with that. Because when we start to change and do something different, there is an emotion, right? There is an emotion attached to that. So then she's able to, unpack that, and we can walk through that grief together. All right. All right. So here's 5 truths I want you to know. Guilt is often, right, the residue of unspoken expectation. It's not spiritual truth. All right. Listen, you've inherited stories about what it means to be good. All right. You have inherited stories about what it means to be good. And these are emotional codes, all right, not identity alignment. All right. So when you were little, you know, yeah, you just caught stories, right? You caught stories of what good looked like, okay? And that could have been indirect, right? So you might have saw grandma get mad when her friend didn't, give her a cut after she bingoed, or she probably gave her a cut, but she didn't give her the cut that they would traditionally give each other, right? So in some way, you learn that looking out for a friend, when you win big, that you need to look out for a friend, because you saw your grandma get upset when she went with her friends to bingo, or her family to bingo, and they didn't give her the cut that she was supposed to get, right? So this is an indirect message that, to make people happy or to stay friendly, that I need to give when I get, okay? Um, Other things is, you may have saw, grandfather get mad about something that a friend did or whatever, and you internalize that. So again, these are emotional codes, in some way taught you what good was. So when you became an adult, unconsciously, right, you started to perform in that way, right? Because you want to be, quote unquote, what, good. All right. All right. Number 2, chronic guilt is a trauma loop, right? Especially in people pleasing. All right. Chronic guilt is a trauma loop, especially in people pleasing. You feel wrong for resting, for saying no, for choosing yourself, but guilt has been tied to your self-worth. So a big part of the guilt is that the wrong that you feel. And that's why I say, like, and I get challenged for this position a whole lot. At this grown age of adult, it's not about being right or wrong, because so many of us are not having the conversations that we should have. So many of us are not living the life that we should have, because we're still trying to do the quote unquote right thing, or we're feared of doing the quote unquote wrong thing. And here's my pushback on that. You have an iris, you have a fingerprint, your own DNA, the thing that makes you unique. So at this grown age of adult, right, you're not, in a sense, in a community. So when you were a kid, right, there was this need to keep you safe, right, from your parent, or from your caregiver, right? And so there was this form of uniformity, right? This thing where everybody had to do things the same, right? And that just what that kept your parent from having to use a lot of energy, right? Remember, the motivational triad says that the brain wants to conserve energy, right? Run away from pain and run towards pleasure. All right. So to conserve energy, it's just easier for all the kids to do the same thing. And if you stepped out the box, right, that required the brain to use a little bit more energy, which meant you did something wrong. All right. But when you become an adult, this is different. Now it is your job at this grown age of adult to find out what is your unique thing. And so for a brief second, you have to take off the right and wrong cap, because probably what you have been trained as wrong for you may be the thing that's very much right for you. But you don't know, because guilt keeps coming in and saying, hey, it's wrong for you to rest. It's wrong for you to say no. It's wrong for you to choose yourself, when all of those things is the yes that you need. Okay. If that makes sense, put a 2 in the chat. All right. Number 3, you can love others and still disappoint them. I've been having this conversation a lot lately, just about the level of perfection that we want from people, just so that people can feel comfortable, right? The level of perfection that we want from people, just so that we can not feel anything or any type of uncomfortableness. All right. And this is not healthy. All right. So the fact of the matter is that you can love others and still disappoint them. Listen, it doesn't make you selfish. It makes you honest. All right. You're not perfect, and nor were you born to please everybody. And again, I'm going to say, you're not everybody's emotional bodyguard. So I can love you and still, disappoint you or let you down or say no, right? My no is not equated to my love for you. My giving is not equated to my love for you. My need for a long time is not equated to my love for you, but some way we have braided those together, and we have to start unbraiding them. Okay. We have to start unbraiding that, because your love is not performative. It is in your being. Right. And a lot of times we have made love so performative that it's in our doing. Right. And so when we don't do the thing, then it's like, you don't love me. I remember a person tried to pull that on me the first time I said, no, I can't do it. And now it's the first thing they say, oh, you don't love me anymore? Oh, I absolutely 100% love you. I 100% love you. Right. I just don't want to do that. Right. And my love is not equated to that. Now, you know me, I'm going to take it a little extra, and I apologize. Right. I apologize to you for forever even buying into the notion that my giving was equated to how much I love you, because I taught you that, right? In the way I gave to you at the equal level that I felt I loved you, because I wanted you to know that I love you. And at this grown age of an adult, I just don't feel the need to do that anymore, but still know that I love you. And we're still wrestling with that in our relationship, because that individual has really a program that the more you do for them, the more you love them. And when you don't do for them, then you don't love them. And so that is our unbraiding as we start to, I guess, redefine our relationship, that my love is not in my doing, my love is in my being. Okay. So if that makes sense, put a 3 in the chat for me. Again, you can love others and still disappoint them. That doesn't make you selfish. It actually makes you honest. All right. Number 4, guilt has trained your nervous system to associate peace with performance. Okay. So saying yes feels safer than feeling misunderstood. All right. Remember those 3 forms of that the nervous system is in. And a lot of us have not moved to safe and social, right? We're still in fight or flight, or we're still in an emotional shutdown, right? And this is where the nervous system, is associating peace with performance, right? So saying yes feels safer. The more I say yes to you, that I don't have to feel your emotion back, right? I don't have to feel that feeling of rejection. I don't have to feel that. And that feels safe to my nervous system. Now, it may not be the safest thing for my growth, for my actualization, for the productivity of this, or for the evolution of our relationship, right? It may not be the best thing for that, but it's definitely safe that, I don't have to feel the rejection, right? So I'm going to continue to say yes. Listen, saying yes often feels safer, even when it's not. And it often feels safer than feeling misunderstood. All right. All right. If that makes sense. Put a 4 in the chat for me. And then the last but not least, telling the truth isn't a rebellion, you guys. It's a return. It's a return to who you, right? Again, truth is the highest frequency, right? Return to your boundaries, return to your emotional honesty, and return to yourself. Listen, it is just so important that we learn to live in our truth. Now, do you know what your truth is at this moment? Probably not, right? Because you probably haven't just done what I call your discovery stage, right? Some of those conversations, some of those thoughts are still in your mind. And possibly even if I ask you, what is it that you want? 9 times out of 10, you probably be like, I don't know, right? And this is okay, but we need to get curious, right? We need to get curious and really understand and start unpacking, what about my life do I want to keep? And what do I want to bag up and put on the street, right? So that I can go shop for new behaviors, a new way of being, right? A new way of looking, a new way of approaching life. Okay. So again, telling the truth isn't rebellion, you guys. It's a return to your boundaries, a return to your emotional honesty, and a return to yourself. Okay. Listen, if guilt isn't guiding you, truth can't. If guilt is guiding you, then guess what? Truth can't lead, because obedience to guilt leads to exhaustion, and obedience to truth, it actually leads to peace. And I have to talk about peace because peace is kind of like this okayness, right? It's this sense of like, I'm okay right now. I think that we think peace is like, everything is going great and everything is, but it's a sense of like, I can accept that, right? It's kind of like neutrality, right? It's kind of like, okay, that didn't go the way I wanted, but I'm okay with that. That person is okay, but I mean, upset with me, but I'm okay with that. This person may not like how I said that, but I'm okay with that. This person loves how I show up. I'm okay with that, right? So peace is this sense of acceptance, right? And we want to get to a place, right, where we can start accepting the good, the bad, and the indifferent. And a lot of us are only accepting what we deem good, right? And we're rejecting what we feel bad or what our nervous system triggers in us. And we really want to get to a sense of peace where I'm okay. I'm okay with that person liking me. I'm okay with this person loving me. I'm okay with this person not liking me, right? It's just this sense of allowing, okay? And then when we can see peace like that, then I think that we can start to really sit in it, right? But a lot of us are not experiencing peace because we're so resistant, right? We're so resistant. A big part of the resistance is because we're not living in our truth, all right? Because we're not living in our truth. And so when somebody else come and live in their truth, then we can get a little upset, all right? Okay, so listen, you cannot create a life that aligns if you're still apologizing for needing one, all right? You cannot create a life that aligns. You cannot create a life that's aligned if you're still apologizing for needing one. I had a client that said, I realized I didn't have to say yes to prove I was loving. All right. That truth gave me my energy back. Again, I'm braiding this concept of my yes means I love you. My no can mean I love you, because KNOW, right? My no can be a KNOW, know that I want that for you. Okay. I just don't have to do it. Right. Know that I still love you and I'm at my capacity. Know that, it's so many things in the know that you should know so that you can be comfortable with not braiding your love to any type of performance. All right. Listen, people pleasing, research has shown that people pleasing and chronic guilt are linked to poor boundary development, emotional burnout, and self abandonment. Let me say that to the people in the back. People pleasing and chronic guilt is linked to poor boundary development, emotional burnout, and self abandonment. All right. So we definitely want to work on people pleasing. And so let me break down a little bit about what people pleasing is, because I think that we think that people pleasing is actually pleasing people, and it's not, right? People pleasing is a coping mechanism, right? You people please because of what you don't want to feel. All right. So because you don't want to feel rejection, you people please. Right. So you're saying yes to the people that you're saying yes to because of what it will feel like to you to say no, right? This guilt that you may feel, this resistance, this rejection that you may feel. And because you don't want to feel that, right? You people please. Okay. So it's actually a coping mechanism, and we will blame other people, right, for asking us, right? Well, they ask me, and I'm tired of people asking me. Well, you can't control them asking you. All right. But what you can train them to do is not ask you when you start saying no, because you say no enough and they going to stop calling and asking. Right. So a lot of times you want them to do the work that actually you should be doing. Right. You should be saying no, no, K-N-O-W, no, I'm at my capacity. Know that that's not something I want to engage in. Know that this is a conversation I don't want to have. Know whatever the boundary is, right? And being able to stick to that boundary. When you're able to stick to that boundary, what happens is you start to curve their emotions. So what you notice is that now they're not coming to ask you. But as long as you're saying yes, they're going to continue to come. Okay. And you're saying that I'm just such a people pleaser because I can't say no, or you get mad at them. And the truth of the matter is that either you're causing it, you're allowing it, and you participating, or you participating. Okay. Listen, you're not here to serve everyone's comfort. You're here to live in your clarity. And the first step in that is really figuring it out, right? Figuring out what will help you to get clear. Okay. All right. So we know that on Mondays, Mindset Mondays, we talk about stories and triggers. All right. So here's 10 truths that I want you to know. Okay. So stories and triggers, when guilt becomes your guide, listen, guilt is not a compass. It is your condition. Okay. It's not a compass, it's your condition. But when you don't question the story, right, you'll keep calling it love. You'll keep calling what you're doing love, and it's not. Okay. So here's 10 things I want you to know. Guilt is a story, not a compass. All right. Guilt often feels like guidance. All right. It's whispering to you. It's saying what you should do, what you could have did, how you could have handled that. Right. But what you're feeling might not be spiritual correction, you guys. It's a story that you were told. Listen, don't say no. Be nice no matter what. If they're upset, it's your fault. These are all learned programs. Okay. So guilt can't lead you toward truth if it's created to keep you emotionally compliant. All right. Listen, if guilt is your compass, you'll always steer towards overfunctioning, right? And what's the overfunctioning? You're functioning for yourself and for the other person. All right. And at this grown age of adult, we just need to be responsible for the energy we bring into a space. All right. And not responsible for everybody else's. And again, that's why we end up getting resentful, carrying all this weight, right? And ultimately trying to control everything and everyone because of this. All right. Number 2, being nice is not the same as being obedient to truth. Okay. Listen, you can be polite. You can be real liked. You can be emotionally exhausted. All right. You can be polite. You can be well liked and emotionally exhausted because you're living by someone else's idea of good. All right. Listen, God never asked you to perform goodness. All right. He asked you to walk in your truth. So truth doesn't always feel good to others, but truth doesn't always feel good to others, but it will always make you free. All right. It doesn't always, your truth will not always feel good to others, but it will make you free. And I think that's the part of growing and evolving, right? Separating from the bunch. All right. It doesn't feel good to the bunch, but it will feel free to you. All right. Number 3, most guilt is internalized, not inspired. Listen, that guilty voice or that inner critic or that inner guilt voice is not always God, you guys. It's often your mother's disapproval. It's the church's expectations. All right. It's the culture, and it could be your trauma. All right. So when you've internalized it long enough, it sounds like conviction, but it really is fear of disappointing others, you guys. Guilt that lingers after truth is not the Holy Spirit, it's programming. All right. So guilt that lingers after you lived in your truth, guess what? It's not the Holy Spirit, is programming. Okay. People pleasing isn't emotional. People pleasing is emotional survival, not identity. You wasn't born to people please, all right? You were trained to believe peace equals approval. So people pleasing is often how we stay safe when love, safety, and praise was conditional. All right. So people pleasing is often how we stay safe, how our nervous system stays safe when love, safety, and praise was conditional. All right. That's not who you are. That's who you learn to be to keep what? To keep the peace. All right. All right. Number 5, emotional loyalty is not spiritual maturity. Listen, staying loyal to people, systems, and roles that are misaligned isn't honorable, you guys. It's actually harmful. Okay. It's actually harmful. All right. Saying yes to avoid rocking the boat isn't love, it's emotional submission. All right. Maturity isn't maintaining the old, it's honoring what's true, even if it shifts the dynamic. All right. Even if it shifts the dynamic. Number 6, guilt trains you to shrink, not stand. So when you fear being too much, when you fear being too honest, when you fear being too clear, you're living in guilt's shadow. All right. Listen, guilt doesn't teach you how to lead, it teaches you how to not upset people. All right. It teaches you how to not upset people. Guilt teaches emotional invisibility and calls it humility, you guys. Again, we are dealing with a lot of emotionally immature people a lot of times because they haven't got the tools. And sometimes we can be emotionally immature because we haven't got the tools. And so what we find ourselves in is very fragile situations, right? Where we need to, in a sense, walk on eggshells or, protect the peace or do all of these things. And we have to be willing to really break the mold, right? And stop being the emotional bodyguards for everybody around you and really be the change that you want to see in the world. And there's this quote that says, "A rising tide lift all boats." And Marianne Williamson also said it good when she said that when you allow your light to shine, you unconsciously give people permission to do the same. So what you'll start to notice is that as you start to create boundaries and enforce your boundaries, guess what? It becomes a ripple effect that other people around you start to do it. Now, at first, it may feel like, oh, you just trying to do that because I did it, but really you're creating a new standard, right? So now you're teaching people how to treat you, and you're unconsciously teaching them how to treat themselves. All right. That makes sense. Put a 6 in the chat for me. Listen, your story, number 7, your story of being the strong one is often written in guilt. Okay, listen, I don't need help. I'll figure it out. I can handle it. These phrases often mask the belief that receiving support is in some way selfish, is in some way weak, or it's in some way a burden. Listen, but strength isn't suppression, you guys. It's the ability to ask for what's real. Okay. The strong one is often the silent one. All right. Listen, we are living in a community and we all need support. That support may look different, right? In different communities, right? We may need emotional support. We may just need an ear to listen to. We may need a body, right? Just the physical person there. We may need the financial support for a season in our life where we're not really doing as well as we want to do. We may need all type of supports, right? This doesn't make you weak at all, right? But if you grew up in a community that taught you that needing help makes you weak, right? You will start to feel guilty for asking for this help, right? Listen, I don't need help. I'll figure it out and I can handle it. All are written out of this emotion of guilt, okay? And we need to break that because, again, a strong one is often the silent one, all right? And a lot of us are not going out and seeking the help that we also need, just like as getting a coach and getting a therapist and all of that, because we have deemed it, right? Something is wrong with us when it's nothing wrong with you. You're expanding into another territory, a different territory. You just may need some support as you heal and as you grow and expand your life. All right. A peace that excludes you isn't peace at all. All right. So peace that excludes you isn't peace at all. Listen, if the only way for everyone else to feel okay is for you to shrink, if the only way for everybody else to feel okay is for you to silence, if the only way for everyone else to feel okay is for you to self-abandon, then guess what? That's not peace. That's performance. All right. That is either you taught them that right? That's performance, right? And or they've learned that and they're looking for you to play a character in their life. Okay. All right. Listen, peace includes you. It's not, or it's not peace. It's pacifying. Okay. Peace includes you, or it's not peace, it's pacifying. You are pacifying a lot of situations because you got to show up so many different ways and wear so many different masks for so many situations. And that in itself is exhausting. Okay. All right. Number 9, guilt taught you to stay quiet, not grounded. All right. So you may have learned to stay, or you may have learned that stillness equals safety. But if your stillness is driven by fear, if it's the fear of judgment, the fear of guilt, the fear of rejection, it's not grounding, you guys, it's silencing. So you are not quiet because you're peaceful. You're quiet because you've been trained to avoid disruption. I'm going to say that again. All right. So a lot of people say, I'm just not going to say nothing because I don't want to cause any problems, or I don't want to say nothing because I don't really like conflict. Listen, um, your stillness is driven, those comments are driven by a fear of judgment, a fear of guilt, or a fear of rejection. All right. Listen, you're not quiet because you're trying to keep the peace. All right. You're quiet because you've been trained to avoid disruption, and we in some way have to disrupt that narrative and that belief so that you can start disrupting some things in your life. All right. And after any disruption, right, there's some calm that comes, and you may need support in that disruption. So again, I encourage you to go get a therapist, get a coach, or join, Project Life, so you can get that support as you start to disrupt, right? What's no longer working. All right. And last but not least, you don't owe everyone access to feel like a good person. You don't owe everyone access to feel like a good person. Letting someone into your space, your energy, or your yes is not proof of your love, and it's not proof of your character. All right. Listen, guilt will tell you to be a good person, you must say yes to everyone. And this is just not true. Listen, boundaries don't make you bad. They actually make you honest, right? They actually communicate what your standard is, what your expectation is, right? And that is the most honest thing that you can do. That's not what I do. That's not, me or whatever. I'm okay with you doing that, right? So boundaries don't make you a bad person. They make you honest. Listen, as we wrap up that section, I want you to know that guilt becomes your guide when truth becomes unfamiliar, right? But you weren't created to live on autopilot. So apologizing your way through life, it's just not going to work. All right. You were created to live in alignment with truth, with boundaries, and with clarity. All right. So let's get to our big biblical wisdom. Our biblical wisdom on today is Galatians 5:1. It is for the freedom that Christ has set you free. So stand firm then, and do not let yourself be burdened again by a yoke of slavery. All right. That is Galatians 5:1. Listen, this interpretation is guilt is not your spiritual identity. Freedom means that you don't live by guilt. All right. You live by grace, you live by clarity, you live by alignment. All right. And God did not call you to emotional slavery through overfunctioning. Right. How does neuroscience match this? Guilt is actually a trick. Guilt triggers a stress response. All right. So chronic guilt actually activates the amygdala. We talked about the amygdala uh, on last week. Really, in the amygdala, when this is activated, it's keeping your body in fight or flight, right? This nervous system in fight or flight mode. Even when you're safe. All right. So even when a situation is safe, it's okay for you to know that you're at your capacity, know that that's something you don't want to engage in, right? It's very safe for you. Your nervous system is screaming fight or flight. All right. So guilt triggers this stress response, which is making you do the thing. Listen, freedom doesn't feel better. It regulates your nervous system. All right. All right. Hey, brother. I love you. All right, it regulates your nervous system. And then our promise verse, Matthew 11:3, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Listen, the interpretation of this is if you feel heavy all the time, it's probably not God, you guys. Listen, God doesn't guilt trip you into obedience. He actually invites you into rest in truth. All right. And neuroscience supports this by saying ease doesn't mean easy. Okay. And I've said that over and over again. When we do stuff with ease, it doesn't mean it's easy. It's just in the way we're doing it, right? It's the sense of allowing. All right. It means so ease doesn't mean easy. It means regulated, it means aligned, and it means emotionally true. All right. So neuroscience confirms that your best decision happens from peace, not from pressure. All right. And here's my anchor question to you. What would it feel like to make decisions without guilt in the driver's seat? All right. Ask yourself that. What would it feel like to make decisions without guilt in the driver's seat? All right. So let's integrate this. Let's put this into practice on this Mindset Reset Monday. All right. So I want you to name one area where guilt is making your decisions. I want you to write a boundary. Number two, write a boundary that supports emotional clarity over emotional obligation. And then I want you to say it out loud. All right. Your nervous system needs to hear the truth. Now, I'm all about getting your nervous system involved and saying stuff out loud. And then, a lot of times when I'm working with clients, they like, I want to say it right. And I'm like, no, just say it, right? Just say it. And as you say it, right, it will get clear. So don't worry about trying to say it the right way or the wrong way, right? Just say it. And it's so important to say things out loud. And I say that because when we say stuff out loud, we actually get all of our senses, right? So your ears get to hear the vibration of your words, get to feel your skin, right? And if there's a smell to your words, then your nose gets to smell it, okay? And a lot of times we're not involving all of our senses because we're leaving stuff in our head. So I want you to say it out loud, so your nervous system needs to hear your truth. All right. Your journal prompt for today is, what role has guilt play in shaping my version of being a good person, and what am I ready to release? All right. And then your affirmation for today: I release the stories that say I owe everyone access to feel worthy. All right, I'm gonna say that again. I release the story that says I owe everyone access to feel worthy. And then your intention for today: listen, today I let truth, not guilt, lead my choices. All right. And then, we're going to do that bonus. Say no today where you previously said yes out of guilt. And then honor the no, right? KNOW. Know why you said no. Okay. Know why you said no. All right. I got that call, that challenge in that charge. So I'm calling, I'm asking, what story rooted in guilt are you ready to let go of? That's what I'm asking. My challenge to you is make one boundary decision this week without apologizing for it, right? Without apologizing for it. And then your charge for today is, you don't owe guilt your obedience. You owe yourself your honesty. All right. So step in your truth as you go shape your life. All right. I want you to know that you are not selfish for choosing peace. You are not disobedient for choosing your truth. Listen, you are free. All right. And you're learning how to walk like that. So if this session truly resonated with you and you are walking away with insight, drop a fire in the chat and let's celebrate our growth together. Listen, tomorrow we're going to talk about the emotional cost of people pleasing as we talk about the obstacles, right, and opportunity costs, right. We'll name what you've been trading for temporary approval and how to really walk in permission instead, okay? If you still need some assistance, you can go to, or if you would like to join the project, make sure you join us at sheetalittle.com/life. Go subscribe to the YouTube channel at I Am Shaping Solutions. Make sure you invite a friend to Elevating Life, okay, to the Elevating Life podcast. And I want you to remember this, right? If you can shape it in your mind, you can have it in your life. Okay. Listen, you don't have to feel guilty for growing out of what no longer fits for you. All right. I love you. I love you. I love you. And I will see you tomorrow for that life lesson. And remember, our life lessons are lunch and learns now. So I come on at 12. All right. Till later.